What's going on, vinyl community? Welcome to another video with the Record Spinner. In today's video, I'm going to be doing a vinyl haul showcasing all the records that I acquired within the month of July this year in 2023. We have a lot of cool stuff to get through in this haul. We have some records by the likes of Sparks, yes, Boygenius, soundtrack to the Daisy Jones and the Six Show, and hell, even a complete OG Kiss Love Gun. It's about to go deep, so without further ado, sit back, relax, and enjoy the latest finds. All right, first up, I'm going to showcase some records that I picked up at the Spark show that I recently went to at the Keswick Theater in Pennsylvania. Despite the fact that it is a pain in the ass getting to that venue, it was definitely worth it because the Mail Brothers, as well as their backing band, put on a phenomenal show with a great set delving into all corners of their 50-plus year career. And it's honestly really cool to see them now get the recognition that they deserve. Whether it falls down to the Sparks Brothers documentary that came out and thus getting a sort of fresh crop of converted fans, or the fact that within the span of 50 years, they have proven to be art pop's ultimate chameleons when it comes to reinventing their style and delving into all kinds of different genres, whether it's the early glam stuff or the more sort of Giorgio Moroder influenced disco stuff, and then techno house music, and then more classical Baroque elements. It kind of goes all over the place, and I think honestly it just makes their discography really fun to delve into. But obviously they are touring in support of a new album that recently came out, and of course I picked up a copy at the merch table, and the album is called The Girl Is Crying in Her Latte, and they did a good amount of numbers off of this record in the live set, so I figured I might as well get acquainted with it and give this album a shot. And this is the clear vinyl pressing, which is very cool. I believe this is also available at most indie stores as well. Nice printed inner sleeve, and there's also a nice booklet which features photos of Russell and Ron, as well as all the lyrics to all the songs, which is really solid stuff. So I was very happy to kind of get in the swing, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, and pick up their newest album. And they had some other records up for grabs there, which I know are at the shop that I work at. But then I saw this one being offered, and I knew for a fact that this is gone on all of the distributors as of filming this clip, and that is the Hippopotamus album. Now, this one came out back in 2017. The one notable track on here is Edith Piaf, Said It Better Than Me. I've heard pretty good things about this album, and I figured just for the sake of beefing up and building my Sparks collection, I figured I would get my hands on this album. And upon checking on Discogs, there's no copies available in the US, so just seeing it at the merch table kind of made it more of an impulse type of buy. But honestly, I'm super stoked that I bought it, and I'm very excited to dive into both of these albums. And this is a 2-record set. I'll just showcase one. Nice printed inners with all the lyrics, with some nice blue center labels there. So overall, very glad that I got my hands on some permanent concert souvenirs in the form of vinyl from Sparks. So in the mail, I did get my hands on the Third Man Records Vault package, the most latest one being the live album called Fearless by Miles Davis. No disrespect to Miles Davis, but I kind of lose interest when Third Man goes into that realm of putting out other artists and such as part of the vault, so I ended up trading that in, and I got my hands on a small stack of records that I've been meaning to get for, I would say, the past month, I should say. And as you saw with my last monthly haul, I was on a big Alice Cooper kick because they had done the deluxe reissues of Killer and School's Out. I actually wrote a review on the deluxe version of Killer for Tracking Angle, and the senior editor, which of course is Mr. Michael Fremer, said that it was the best piece that I had contributed so far to the site, which was very humbling to hear. And I'm kind of riding the tail end of this Alice Cooper wave that I've been on this past month, and I picked up a missing gap in my 70s Cooper collection, and it's in the form of a live album, which is the Alice Cooper Show. This was recorded and released back in 1977 during the tour in support of the Lace and Whiskey album, and honestly, this album was a contractual obligation. Alice was hitting the bottle. right before he went into the asylum, and that became From the Inside and such. He was kind of forced to make this record, and it kind of comes across as that. I would go as far as to say this is not one of the essential live albums to check out in general. Comes across as more of a, I would say it's more of just a meh kind of performance. But the production value, I don't know. It's raw. There's audience. It's a live album. There's nothing fancy going for it. I will say though, I do love the album cover with all the various live images of Alice, and the track list does cover a good bit of ground, despite the fact that some of the tracks are cut short or appear in medley form. But it's an interesting timepiece. I didn't have this in my collection, and I'm an Alice Cooper completist, so I had to have it. But what's cool is that the original was just a single sleeve with a printed inner. They actually turned that inner sleeve into a gatefold, which, why does it look like this if it's a live album? You could have put more live shots in there. And this was released on the Palm Tree Warner Brothers label, but since this Friday Music reissue comes on that sort of modified Friday Music label where you see the FM instead of the WB, so kind of makes it unique. So very happy to get my hands on this gap filler in my Alice Cooper collection. And now we go into proggy territory with one of my favorite progressive rock bands, and it's a band that my parents raised me on, and I have an infinite love for this band. But when it comes to this band putting out new records, I'm always a little apprehensive. And to be quite honest, this is maybe why I didn't pick this up last month when the record first came out. And I am talking about the newest album by Yes, and it's called Mirror to the Sky. Now, Yes right now is a bit of a weird animal because Alan White passed away, Steve Howe is manning the ship, and then you have John Davison on vocals, who's, all due respect, a John Anderson clone. Billy Sherwood on bass, good friend of Chris Squires, who basically was, given his blessing to continue in the band. Jeff Downs on keyboards, and then Jay Shellen on drums, who had filled in for Alan live. And that's Yes as we know it. So it's just kind of it's a weird thing, but I try to give Yes a little bit of leeway because I see the Roger Dean artwork, I see the Roger Dean logo, I try to cut it some slack. But also the important thing to take in mind when it comes to listening to, new albums by heritage prog bands is that they're not necessarily going to be racking it up against the likes of Close to the Edge, Fragile, Tales from Topographic Oceans, Relayer, so on and so forth. They're doing what they can do best at this moment, and that's what you really kind of have to gauge it at. And to be honest, I don't think I've listened to any of the promo singles for it, so I'm really going into this with a fresh slate. But overall, the artwork is nice. Gatefold opens up. There's all the guys there. And this does come with a nice little booklet, which has some artwork, as well as the band photos. There's some behind-the-scenes shots, lyrics, liner notes, all that good stuff. So something fun to flip through. And this is the indie exclusive pressing, which comes pressed on sort of, I don't know, it's like a yellowy cream colored vinyl, and I believe this is limited to 500 copies, I want to say. And this is a 2 LP set as well, and they actually do some more epics on this album as opposed to the one that came out previously before this, which was called The Quest, which I did pick up, and that one wasn't too bad. I did enjoy that one, but we shall see what I think of the new Yes record here, Mirror to the Sky. But if I want to go back in time and pay some respects to the great bass player Chris Squire himself, I can easily go to Chris Squire's Fish Out of Water. This was Chris's first solo album from 1975. I absolutely love this album. I have been wanting a vinyl copy of it. It just recently got reissued by Esoteric Recordings. There was a big box set that was done several years ago, and it was like CD, DVD, vinyl, all in one. And I was like, when are they going to do a separate vinyl reissue? Sure enough, they did. One of my favorite tracks on here is the opening track, Hold Out Your Hand. Just a great track. Bill Bruford plays on this. Patrick Moraz is on keyboards. Yeah, some orchestral arrangements. Mel Collins from King Crimson's on here. It's an overall fun listen, and also Chris Squire can just never do wrong when it comes to his vocals, his bass playing. Like, when you listen to this, you can tell that he was the real DNA in Yes. And very unfortunate passing too, when he passed away back in 2015, was it? So crazy stuff. But gatefold jacket replicates the original, and there's even a cool poster if you see the stained glass artwork on the back cover that is replicated here. So if you and your prog aficionados want to feel kind of snuff, you can hang that and they'll know exactly what the reference is. Printed inner sleeve here of Chris from the cover, and here is the custom center label, and I gotta say, this vinyl looks absolutely virgin and fresh. No scuffs, no marks. It looks absolutely beautiful, and definitely excited to be revisiting this classic early Chris Squire solo album along with the new Yes. So it's all in this, all in the same sort of family tree. Okay, so the next couple of records I'm going to show you guys are some trades that recently were brought in at the shop, and coincidentally, these are all female-led artists that have been kind of dominating the indie pop music realm, I would say, for the past, I want to say, roughly 10 years, I want to say. So that was merely coincidental with what selection I got my hands on. The first up is actually a band that gets played quite often at the shop by my friends and coworkers. Gets a lot of heavy rotation, and that's just part of the beauty of working at a record store, is that you get subjected to things that you wouldn't necessarily be subjected to on your own. So when I hear something that kind of perks my ear, I always make a mental note to check a certain album or artist out for myself. Needless to say, this is one that I've been needing to get my hands on for quite some time, and that is Caro Caro Bonito, Time and Place. They are on the Polyvinyl label, which is home to Of Montreal, Hazel English, amongst other artists that I like. With all due respect, I kind of label Caro Caro Bonito's sound as like schizopop, because it shifts drastically throughout, you know, the arrangements of all the material. Some of it is inspired by J-pop, video game music. It's very hyper, for lack of a better term, but it does make for a rather interesting listen. So I was happy to get my hands on this album, which, out of what I've heard, is my favorite so far. Does come with a cool little lyric booklet, which kind of has a nice sort of rootsy DIY aesthetic to it, and the same can be said with the sort of stamped design type of label there, which is pretty cool. So very happy to get my hands on some KKB. And then moving onward into a more sort of indie folk type direction, I was also able to get my hands on Mitski's Be the Cowboy. Out of what I've heard of Mitski's catalog, which I'm not gonna lie, I haven't listened to everything, this is the album that really resonated. And also coincidental too that the vocalist of Caro Caro Bonito and Mitski are of Japanese origin, so that's another coincidence there. But the artwork on this is absolutely tremendous, I should say. Nice gatefold jacket. There's also a giant, and I mean giant, fold-out poster, which I'm going to attempt to unfurl and show on camera. Probably not going to see all of it, but here, I'll try to pan some shots, which looks really nice. I'm not even going to attempt to fold this on camera, so I'll put this off to the side. And there is also a printed die-cut inner sleeve with all the lyrics, and the custom center labels have some cool custom art there as well. So that's really cool. Happy to get my hands on some Mitski. And now next up is actually a supergroup that I have been wanting to get into for the longest time. Not really get into, but just get my hands on their records. They actually just released their first proper full-length album this year, which, keep your eyes peeled as you watch this haul. But I got the self-titled EP of Boygenius. Now, Boygenius is a supergroup consisting of Phoebe Bridgers and Julian Baker, two artists that I absolutely adore. I have a lot of their solo stuff, as well as Lucy Dacus. I got to get some of her stuff, but they joined forces and they put out this EP as well as the full length that I mentioned. And it's just by artist association that makes me want to dive into their work and just, I understand it's a little daring to just kind of go off of those instincts, but it's kind of the thrill of approaching new music to dive into, because I always tell people, granted that while my tastes tend to be very derivative of, classic rock and hard rock and prog rock from the 60s and 70s, it goes to show that there is a lot of great new music out there. You just got to find it, and sometimes just seeing things by association means that you should pull the trigger on it, and that's simply the case with Boygenius's self-titled EP. Okay, so I was checking out some Whatnot live streams one morning recently, and I believe I've referenced this particular seller a couple of times in my monthly vinyl hauls. I shouldn't say it's one particular seller. It's a group of sellers under one account, where if you are frequent on the Whatnot live stream shows, you might be well aware of them for auctioning off new LPs at $5 to $10 a pop. So that is very enticing to perhaps check out for yourself, and after watching them for a while, it was kind of becoming stale with the same old inventory, so they got some fresh stuff in, and I went ahead and checked out the show, and I got some titles for myself that kind of caught my eye. So starting off with, and this is shocking because this is a new release that came out this year, it is the full-length record from Boygenius. Of course, I've referenced Boygenius earlier in this haul, indie pop supergroup of Lucy Dacus, Phoebe Bridgers, and Julian Baker, and this is their full-length album, which follows up their self-titled EP. And honestly, like I said, I'm shocked that this was being offered for way beyond what it retails for, which is quite insane. But overall, nice gatefold jacket, and I even like that it includes this sort of almost lyric booklet, but you almost have to approach it very delicately. It's like printed on like, I don't know, like soft newspaper material. Almost feels like a little magazine of sorts, which is honestly really, really nice. And of course, the record itself has some nice custom center labels as well. So between the EP as well as the full length, I'll have my true Boygenius fix. Then we get into some quirky avant-garde territory. This is one of the recent Zappa archival releases, and that is the soundtrack to the 200 Motels film, and this is a recent 50th anniversary pressing. This came out back in 2021. I remember when this came out, but to get it for a rock low price, I figured it was worth exploring. I say that, yet I actually have not watched the film itself, but it's Zappa with the Royal Philharmonic, so it should be a rather interesting listen. Nice gatefold jacket, 2 LPs, and just as an added bonus, it does come with a giant fold-out poster, which is the movie poster, which came out back in the day, which is pretty cool. So happy to get some more Zappa in my collection. Moving onward, this is an artist that I kind of got into basically because his records were being offered for solo and whatnot, and it was just kind of worth the excursion sort of to delve into some fresh territory. I am talking about Rory Gallagher. This is called Deuce. Previously, I got a best of from Whatnot, as well as his self-titled debut, and this is the follow-up to that debut album, and this is another one of those 3 LP deluxe versions where you get the remastered album, you get some alternate takes, as well as some radio broadcasts. So if you are a Rory Gallagher nut, then these packages are quite enticing, along with the multi-CD versions as well, which include even more content than what's featured on the vinyl. Like I said, 3 LPs, and it also does come with a nice booklet full of liner notes and photos, which is very nice. And then last but not least, here is an old Record Store Day release that kind of caught my eye initially, tend to forgot about, and once I saw it being auctioned off so cheap, I figured I might as well jump on it. But it is Robert Plant, live at Nebworth, 1990. Of course, Robert Plant, vocalist of Led Zeppelin, did a little solo set at the Nebworth Festival in 1990. But what made this even more enticing for me to check out is that Jimmy Page joined him on stage for the song Wearing and Tearing, which appears on Led Zeppelin's final album, Coda, was recorded during the sessions for In Through the Outdoor. And if Bonham hadn't passed away, they definitely would have gone more in that direction, which was almost harking back to their hard rocking roots with, of the sound that can be found on Led Zeppelin 1 and 2. It sounds a little bit more punky even, and it's one of my favorite Zeppelin tracks. So to have a cool live rendition of it by Page and Plant is honestly really solid. Okay, so if you follow me on social media, I'm sure you are all aware that me and my good friends over at the Youngest Members of the VC went on a big week-long trip to New Orleans, along with a couple of other stops elsewhere. Fantastic time, and keep your eyes peeled for the documentary that's going to be dropping very soon on that trip. And once we made our way to my friend Marikan and her husband Jared's neck of the woods in Kentucky, she had actually given me some records, which was very sweet of her. So thank you very much, Marikan. Starting off with Courtney Barnett, the double EP, A Sea of Split Peas. I already have this in my collection, but this right here is the Vinyl Me Please pressing that was recently done. I always see Vinyl Me Please do great colored vinyl pressings of things I already have, but it's like, do I want to go through the whole thing of signing up and making sure I get it? But I think if you signed up with like X amount of months with them, they actually send you a free record, and that's exactly the case with this. So they sent this to Marikan for free. Whether she already has this or just immediately thought of me to give this to me, it's in my hand. So once again, thank you very much, Marikan. And here is the little gold foil stamp along with the number. This is copy number 46. Take a look at that. That is nice. And this is also a sort of almost semi-tip-on gatefold style jacket. It's not as sturdy as a regular tip-on, but the effect is still there pretty much. But wait until you see the color of the vinyl. This is pressed on what is described to be split pea colored vinyl, which is basically an overall green hue with like little flecks of light green and blue and white. It creates a beautiful marbled effect, and I gotta tell you, it's more desirable than my standard black pressing. So parted ways with the black and got my hands on the Vinyl Me Please, so thank you very much. And last but not least, this is the really, really, really cool one here. I think perhaps I was doing a little bit too much looking in her newly designed music room, and I saw this out of the corner of my eye, and she was like, crap, that was supposed to be your birthday gift. So I was like, I could just hold off on it. She's like, nah, just take it now, which was very sweet of her. And I'm actually going to get this out of the resealable outer sleeve. And it is a copy of Kiss Love Gun. Original 1977 pressing. But wait, I gotta show you guys everything that's in this thing. Get a load of this. You have the original merch order form, and there's also the original gun unassembled. And if you own the original back in the day, original printed inner sleeve, and I'll showcase the vinyl itself. The vinyl itself is in very nice shape. A couple of minor surface scuffs which will not affect playback, but look at that. Absolutely awesome. And I will say, even though, typically when it comes to my main Kiss collection, there's a lot of the newer pressings and bootlegs and things, I do have a stash of collectible vintage Kiss pressings. And I do have to say, this is probably the crown jewel of them all, to have a complete intact original Kiss Love Gun pressing. So thank you very much, Marikan. Okay, so we're going to be wrapping up this haul with a couple of last-minute pickups and trades that I recently did, starting off with the latest repress from Of Montreal, and that is the early 4-track recordings. This EP came out, I want to say, in the early 2000s. But the recordings date back to around, I want to say, like roughly 95 to 97. So this is definitely during the Cherry Peel era. So if you can dig that sort of early lo-fi twee pop sound that they were doing at the time, then this is definitely worth checking out. But this is definitely, I would say, aimed for completists. You know, it's kind of off the beaten path if you're kind of working through the core of Montreal catalog. But if you're someone like myself who really digs the early of Montreal stuff, then this is definitely worth checking out. And I'm glad that it finally got a repress on vinyl since it's been out of print for quite some time. But this time around, this repress comes pressed on a nice piece of green vinyl, which is really, really solid. So happy to get this in my collection and give it a spin on the turntable. And recently I had a chance to binge watch the Amazon Prime series Daisy Jones and the Six. Really recommend it, based off of the book of the same name. Haven't read the book, but I should go back and check that out. If you can dig some of the Fleetwood Mac narrative undertones in the storyline of the series, then you'll definitely enjoy it, as well as the soundtrack, which the vinyl pressing of it, they actually molded to look like the album that was referenced in the show, which of course was called Aurora, which in the storyline, it is the only album that Daisy Jones and the Six had put out. And obviously, as you can tell just by the outfits on the back from the cast, I mean, total nod to the 70s. They really just tap into it so well. And the music itself, if you like, you know, self-titled Rumors era Fleetwood Mac with a slight twist of modern pop sensibilities, then you will absolutely enjoy this. But like I said, I really did enjoy watching the series when I was going through it, and it just prompted me to check out the soundtrack for myself. Kind of went past me at first when this first was announced and it came out, so it took some time for me to really kind of dig into it. But sure enough, I was sold, and it was good enough for me to get the soundtrack. So here is the printed inner sleeve here, member of the band/cast, along with some liner notes from the book author as well as the producer of the show. And they even replicate, I shouldn't even say replicate, they have the LMR Records label, which was the label that they were signed to in the show. So it's as if it was an actual thing that existed back in, what, 77, which was the year that this show took place in. But definitely gets my stamp of approval. So if you have some time to kill, definitely check out Daisy Jones and the Six. Moving on into some cool sort of ambient experimental territory with these last couple of things. This was a recent trade that came in at the shop recently, and I have been eager to check out this album for myself fully. I've listened to it in the shop, but you know, there's a distinguishable difference between listening to a record in store as I'm working and sitting down in front of my turntable and listening to it for myself. And that is Brian Eno's Here Come the Warm Jets. I absolutely enjoy some of Eno's early glam solo stuff, as well as all the ambient stuff that he did later on in his production work with various other acts that I love. And this was just an album on my sort of to-do list to check out for myself. And the record itself comes pressed on nice heavyweight vinyl with some nice custom center labels here as well. So happy to dig deeper into some early Eno territory. And I also picked up, this is a sort of recent release on vinyl that came out, I want to say sometime last year, of actually a collaborator that has worked with Eno in the past, but of course he is the guitarist of King Crimson and has produced a bunch of other artists. There's only one person that should come to mind when I say just that alone when it comes to Crimson, and that is Robert Fripp, Washington Square Church. This is a live recording of him doing his sort of Frippertronics loops and such, so that's usually when he has tape loops playing and he kind of plays live to it. He had done tours of these Frippertronic experiments back in the 70s going into the early 80s, and this is just one of the live recordings that exist of him doing that kind of thing, and they released it as a 2 LP set. And if you want something to kind of just vibe out to and get ambient with, then this is definitely one to check out. Comes pressed on nice heavyweight 200-gram vinyl, and I'm definitely excited to dig into this. I feel like when it comes to Fripp's own material, whether it's solo or with Crimson, the Frippertronics kind of just, the surface gets scratched a little bit. So I think a release like this will definitely kind of broaden the appreciation scope as for what he contributed with the Frippertronics and all of his related endeavors. So there you guys go. That is my vinyl haul of all the records that I acquired within the month of July this year in 2023. If you enjoyed this video, please go ahead, give it a like, and subscribe to the channel. See you guys in the next video, and most importantly, keep the records spinning.